No, 4.
Oh.
Boy, Paul.
Yo, I
I
know
can't
that.
talk.
They can make that
Solving,
like a serious strategy.
ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 by factoring. So this is when my leading coefficient is not 1. So you have to do more thinking. This is why you've got to be very good at math facts. Okay? So, when we had a leading coefficient of 1, it was really easy because we asked ourselves, what multiplies to give us 25, what adds to give us 10? When I have a leading coefficient that's not 1, that means I'm multiplying stuff by, in this case, the only factors of 5 are 1 and 5. So one box has to have x, and then one of my factors have to have 5x. But I've got to manipulate the other numbers to still multiply to give me 6, but now I've got to add to give me negative 17. So my leading coefficient is going to change what I'm doing. So I'm still factoring, okay? When I factor this, the factors of 5, the way I say to go about this, if your mind can't just separate it, is to list all the factors of 5, list all the factors of 6, and then see which combination will get you to 17. There's no quick way around it. It is what it is. So factors of 5 are 1 and 5, right? Factors of 6 are 1 and 6 or 2 and 3. Okay? If I multiply 5 by 6, I get 30. If I multiply 5 by 1, I get 5. If I multiply 6 by 1, I get 6. 5 and 6 is 11. That doesn't get me to 17. If I multiply 5 by 2, I get 10. And 1 by 3, I get 3. 10 and 3 doesn't get me to 17. But if I multiply 5 by 3, what do you get? 15. If I multiply 1 by 2, you get? Can I get 15 and 2 to 17? Yes. So you're going to have x, you're going to have 5x. You told me I need to multiply 5x by 3, and I need to multiply x by 2. Now, question is, are they positives, negatives, or what?
Why is it?
6 has to be positive, 17 has to be,
Both negative.
so they're both negative, and that's how I factor this. So my factor is x minus 3 and 5x minus 2. So when your leading coefficient is not 1, you have more work to do. Good news is this. We learned 2 types of special equations yesterday. What were they? Difference of squares and what is this one? Perfect square trinomial. So if I look at the beginnings again, like if this and this number are both perfect squares, I can still apply this rule to it and not have to do math. But if they're not, then I gotta do this. Okay? And if they're not a difference of squares, I have to do this as well. It's going to take time if you don't know math facts. If you know math facts and you can divide things in your head easier, it's gonna be much quicker for you. This is why you need to know your times tables.
So where are all the numbers coming from?
I list all the factors of 5 and of 6 first. That's
So-
where all the numbers are coming from.
So, 5x, that's there because that was the number in front of the
Yes, x
squared.
squared. And then I go with the 6 at the end.
Oh, so 2 and 3 equal 5.
No.
But it
2 times 3 gives me the 6. Those are the factors of the 6. The 1 and the 5 are the factors of the leading coefficient. So the numbers with the x are the factors of the leading coefficient. The regular numbers are the factors of the constant.
But don't they have to be able to be added together in order to equal like?
Yeah, watch.
Yeah.
X times 5x. 5x squared. X times negative 2. Negative 2x. Negative 3 times 5x. Negative 15x. Negative 3 times negative 2, positive 6. If I combine like terms, I get 5x squared minus 17x plus 6. That's the same as what I started with. That's how you always check your answer. You unfactor it by FOILing it. Okay? So the first 2 numbers, this 1 and this 5, come from the factors of the first leading coefficient. These numbers, the 3 and the 2, come from the factors of 6. When I multiply them together, They have to add to give me what's in the middle, okay? So it's factors of the first and last added together give me the middle. 3x squared plus 20x minus 7. So what are the factors of 3? That's where we're gonna start. 1 and 3, right? Right now it's easy, they're giving you easy ones. What are the factors of 7? 1 and 7, okay? How can I get the factors of 1 and 3, the factors of 1 and 7 to the number 20? That's my question. So I know that I'm going to have one that says x, right? And I know I'm going to have one that says 3x. Now, what is 7 times 3?
21.
Okay, and 1 times 1 is, so 7 times 3, which is 21, and 1 times 1, which is 1, can that get me to 20?
Yes.
Yes, so 7's gonna go here, because I need to multiply it by 3, 1's gonna go here. Now, this 7 is negative, but this 20 is,
Positive.
so which of these is positive and which is negative?
The 7 is positive.
The 7 is positive, because I need this to be a larger number. This is your answer. I can check it, because I can FOIL it. 3x squared, negative x, 21x, negative 7. Combine like terms. And that's the same as the original. So you can always check what you're doing if you're not confident in it. Okay? This portion isn't on your quiz tomorrow, it will only be leading coefficients of 1. So tomorrow it's only 4, 1 through 4, 3. So you'll only have leading coefficients of 1. We will then come back on Friday after the quiz on Thursday and continue to do factoring with these. Okay? Okay, now look, factor the expression 16x squared minus 1. That you should be able to tell me off your head. Like off the top of your head like that. Perfect square, because 1's a perfect square, and 16 is a perfect square. And what's that minus sign in between? So it's perfect, it's a difference of squares. So what does that mean that factors out to? Try to apply what we learned yesterday. Good, 4x minus 1. And 4x plus 1. Okay, this is a perfect square, that is a perfect square. So I take the square root of 16 and the square root of x, which is 4x, and those are in both sections, and I take the square root of 1, so 1's positive and 1's negative. That's how you factor that expression. You have to be able to start recognizing perfect squares, trinomials, and difference of squares. Okay, that's an easy one, that shouldn't take any time for you. If you can recognize that they have a perfect square at the beginning and the end, you are set. Look at this one right here. 9y squared plus 12y plus 4. How do you want to factor that? Can you do what? No? Well, 3y plus 2 squared. Why do you know that? Perfect square, so I have a perfect square trinomial. Okay, so I have 3y plus 2 squared. Okay, perfect square trinomial. That's why I said look at the first, look at the last always. See if they're perfect squares. If they are, you don't have to do work usually. Okay? What?
So really do like that sometimes.
Yeah. So what's going on here?
Perfect square.
Perfect square, so what is my answer?
Looks like error.
2 or minus, or plus, or minus 49. Minus 7.
2r minus 7. Remember, squared. Remember, I always get my sign from what's right here. Okay? So those were all either difference of squares or perfect square trinomials. Those on your homework shouldn't take you any time to do. You've got to be able to recognize that, okay? If you are factoring that during the quiz, you're not gonna get your quiz done in time.
Huh?
Huh?
Oh.
If you sit there and factor these ones out, that should take you like that, you're not gonna get your quiz or test done in time. And I'm not having mercy on you for your quiz and test when you're factoring ones that should be recognizable. Got it? Okay, that's why you're spending all your time. Know that when I make your quiz or test, I take into consideration that you should be able to recognize that, and it should take you 4 seconds to do.
You should put like stars next to the lines.
Nope, you need to be able to recognize it.
Just go ahead and do this.
Okay, look at these ones. 3s squared minus 24. Okay, is the front a perfect square?
No.
No, okay? But there's nothing in the middle, so that means when I do the factors and list it, it cancels everything out in the middle. So let's see if it's possible, because remember, sometimes things aren't factorable.
It's so.
What are the factors of 3?
1 and 3.
1 and 3. What are the factors of 24?
4 and 6.
4 and 6. 12 and 2. Oh.
8 and 3.
1 and
Okay,
24.
let's work
1
with
and
these
24.
and see if there's any combinations where I can cancel out the middle. 1 and 3, 2 and 12. 1 and 3, 2 and 12. If I'm not multiply any of those in any order and try to subtract them from each other or add them, do they cancel out? No. 1 and 3, 4 and 6.
I think it's 1, 3, and 1, 24.
I think it's no solution.
Oh wait. Yeah.
I love how he's just like, I'm gonna say no solution because I don't want to think about doing this.
No, I want to think about what Bernie Sanders is doing right now at this present moment.
What are we trying to?
You're trying to factor it.
No, we
Huh?
trying
I'm
to.
joking.
You said in the middle, but.
Don't talk about Bernie like that.
It is only 3s squared minus 24, there's nothing in the middle, the middle ended up canceling out. So I need something that multiplies to give me negative 24, which is the factors under 24, right?
So
And I need
1,
something that adds to give me 0 in the
I
middle.
think he could kick, actually.
Oh,
You know what?
He tried to list like.
I'm about to kick you in the
124
face.
and 3, 1.
Okay,
Stop talking to me.
so here's the deal. We listed all the factors, we looked at all that, it's not possible to do. But, now we have to ask ourselves a new question, okay? Here's the new question. Can I factor something out of 3s squared minus 24?
Yeah.
What can you factor out?
8.
I'm sorry, there's an 8 with the S.
A 12.
I can factor out a 3, thank you, Mallory.
Oh, you still
If I
want to
factor
play
out a
some
3, I get this. 3 times s squared minus what?
house, like,
Minus
how did she get to that?
8.
Hey.
3 times s squared minus 8, yes?
What?
Okay.
The S is in the original.
So here's the deal.
Oh, that's not an X.
I don't know what you're talking
I
about.
thought that said 3X, bro.
So here's the deal. When I am factoring an expression, sometimes my expression isn't going to break down into 2 things. It might, okay? Sometimes I literally can only factor out the common factor. Okay? So I had a common factor of 3 here, so I could factor it out. So this is actually all they want. Okay? It's impossible to do anything else.
Is it because they share 3?
So, when you are looking at these now, okay, and it says factor the expression, here's the key. When it says factor the expression, okay, we want to look at these now, especially if there's no middle, and say, is there something that's common that I can factor out of them? Okay, to make it easier for us. Here you have 8t squared plus 38t minus 10. 8t squared plus 38t minus 10, okay? Is there something I can factor out of all of those to start with? A 2, so let's start there. If I take a 2 out of 8t squared, what are you left with? 4t squared. If I take a 2 out of 38t, what are you left with? 19t. And if I take a 2 out of negative 10, what are you left with?
5.
Negative 5. Boom. Now, I have to ask myself if I can factor 4t squared plus 19t minus 5.
You'll get 23t cubed.
What?
What?
What are you saying?
Can't get 20, please?
No. I have no idea where you're even trying to get that from. Okay. So now I need to ask myself, what are the factors of 4 and what are the factors of 5 that can get me to 19?
20.
Okay, what do you mean 20? You're on to something. What do you mean by 20?
Like 20 is it's 1 away from 19.
It is 1 away from 19. How do I get to 20 with 4 and 5?
Multiply.
Okay, so if I do this, 4t, t, and I do 5, okay? That means that this would have to be 1, because 5 times 1, right? Which one's positive and which one's negative?
One is negative.
The 1 is negative, the 5 is positive. Because if I factor that, I get 4t squared, I get 20t minus t, which would give me 19, and I get negative 1 and 5, which would give me negative 5. This is the factored form. I can't take it any further.
How you doing, Ashman?
Okay?
I have a
Can't do.
question.
Yes,
Why
what's your,
didn't you do that
the table?
not the table, the factoring thing? The,
This table.
yes, the table.
Okay. Because in my, because you can list it every time, Mallory. If you can see it, you don't have to do that.
Okay, I can't see
That was
it.
the one.
Okay, so what I would say is this, factors of 4 are 1 and 4, 2 and 2, right?
Oh, that was yours then?
Factors of 5 are 1 and 5. The only way to get
Okay.
to 19 is 1 and 4, 1 and 5.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Over here, 6x squared, 24x, 15. Is there anything that can factor out of all 3 of those first? A 3, beautiful. Okay. So then you have 2x squared. What's 24 divided by 3? 8x. And what's 15 divided by 3? 5. Okay. So now I have a leading coefficient of 2 and a constant of 5. So my factors of 2 are 1 and 2. My factors of 5 are 1 and 5. I've got to figure out how I can get 1 and 5, 1 and 2 to 8. 5 times 2 is 10, right?
Minus 2 times.
Huh?
How do that?
5 times 2 is 10. 1 times 1 is 1. So 10 and 1 can only get me to 9, right? Okay. 2 times 1 is 2. 5 times 1 is 5. 2 and 5 can only get me to 7. So is that factorable any further?
No.
No. So this is your final
No
solution.
solutions.
No, this is your final, this is as far as you can take it. Okay? So sometimes you might get to a part where you're like, oh, I can't go any further, that's it. Okay?
So it has to be like the first one and the second one. Like, it
The
has to
first
be-
one, the
The
factors
last
of the
one.
first and the last one have to give you the middle.
Like,
last night's homework.
Yes, like last night's homework, but the leading coefficient is.
like you have to switch, you can't use the same number.
You mean, you wanna use like 5 twice?
Correct.
No.
Okay.
Unless it's like 25, Mallory, then I can use 5 twice, because 5 times 5 is 25. Does that make sense? Okay. Solve 3x squared plus 10x minus 8 equals 0. So if it says solve, what does that mean I'm doing? I'm getting x equals at the end. I'm not just leaving it in factored form, okay? I have to take both of those, set them equal to 0, solve for x, okay? 3x squared plus 10 minus 8. Okay, factors of 3, yes? That's where we're going to start. This stupid thing, get out of my way. Factors of 3 are 1 and 3. Factors of 8 are 2, 4, 1, 8. How can I get 1 and 3? Can I get 1 and 3 and 2 and 4 to 10 somehow? Yes.
Hold up, I'm trying to think. Let me process this.
Okay.
Okay, so it would be 3 times 2 and 1 times 4.
No.
What?
3 times 2 is 6. Oh, possibly. So you're saying 3 times 2 is 6 and 1 and 4 is 10? Problem is this. Okay, that's right, you are correct. But this is a -8,
Oh, that's tough.
and that's a +10, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so because one's a -8 and one's a +10, I have to have one be positive and one be negative. If it was a +8, or if the 10 was negative, you would be correct,
Oh, that's tough.
okay? But you're still right in, you're going to use 1 and 3 and 2 and 4. What's 3 times 4?
12.
What's 1 times 2?
2.
Can 12 and 2 get to 10?
-2.
Yeah.
Yes. Good. So I'm going to do 3x, and I'm going to do -2, because Brady said -2 gets me there. And I'm going to do x, and I'm going to do +4, because that's what's going to get me to -8 and +10. Yes? What?
How do we decide which one goes first? Like,
Trial and error. Oh, you mean like which of these parentheses go
Yeah,
first?
-2 and +4.
Okay, like which order this and this go in?
Yeah.
Because I need a +12 so that this will stay positive. So, what I'm saying is this. In order to get a +10 and a -8, when I would FOIL this, I would get 3x times 4, right? Which would give me 12x.
Yeah.
And this would give me -2x, so that would keep that positive. And -2 and +4 gives me 8.
So the
So-
outsides and insides always multiply?
Yes, you can always check your answer by foiling,
Interesting.
okay?
Whose water is this?
Now, we are not done because it said solve. So I have to take this parenthesis, 3x minus 2, and set it equal to 0 and solve for x. So I would add 2 to both sides. 3x equals 2. I would divide by 3, and x would equal 2/3. Here, I have to also take this and set it equal to 0. Subtract 4, and x equals -4. So my answer is x equals 2/3 or -4. When it says solve, you have to have what x equals.
I'm still sitting here for too long time.
Didn't we have some of those in our homework last night?
Yes, but this just has a leading coefficient of 1.
Wait, don't erase, please.
I'm not, I'm doing
Hold
one.
up, I'm trying to comprehend this.
We have like 5 minutes, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
We're gonna do one more, and then we're gonna stop here, and that's why we're gonna revisit this on Thursday.
I'm trying to learn the secrets to the game
Or on
by
Friday.
looking at this problem.
So this isn't gonna be open for tomorrow?
This isn't, not leading coefficients that are greater than 1. Yeah, yesterday's kind will be on, but
How do you get one with the coefficient of 1?
Oh, I understand what you did here. Mi comprende.
okay, look at B.
Um,
It says 5p squared minus 16p plus 15 equals 4p minus 5. What do we have to do first before we can even
Make it
solve
equal
this?
0.
Make it equal 0, Brady.
Yes.
Subtract 4p from both sides and add 5 to both sides. So when I do that, I get 5p squared minus 20p plus 20 equals 0. Now, I can factor that loveliness. Okay? I need to use the factors of 5 and the factors of 20 to get me to -20 in the middle. So, factors of 5 are 1 and 5. Factors of 20, 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. Is that all? Yes. Okay. So 1 and 5 and 1 and 20, can that get me to -20? No. 1 and 5, 2 and 10, can that get me to -20?
No, sweet.
What's 5 times 2?
10.
What's 1 times 10?
10.
Can 10 and 10 get me to 20?
Yes.
Yes.
Wait, I thought the.
Mm-hmm. So watch. I'm going to use this set and this set of factors.
Yeah, I get that, but I thought that the one had to go.
How did you
Alright.
do it?
No, you can
So
switch the
it
order.
doesn't matter which one. you
Nope.
pick.
Doesn't matter.
really?
I can do 1
Maybe a
times
traffic
5,
cop.
or I can do 1 times 4.
But as long as you use those,
You a traffic
Mhm.
cop.
okay.
And then I'm going to
Give me your
do P and whatever. Okay, so 10 needs to go with the P, 2 needs to go with the 5. What do both of those have to be?
B.
Look, I need a -20, but a +20 here.
Negative.
So both are negatives. Now, am I done?
No.
What do I need to do now?
Multiply.
Boil it.
No,
Solve for P.
solve for P.
You wanna put?
I would love it.
So add 10, 5P equals 10, divided by 5, P equals 2. P minus 2 equals 0, add 2,
P equals 2.
P equals 2.
P
Oh.
is 2.
So P is just 2 in this case, yes?
Yes. B complete those.
Okay, that's where we're stopping today.
Hit it from the back.
Still,
What?